Okay.
Alrighty then.
Alrighty then. We are back with 90s noise.
Somebody stop me.
Look, Ma, I'm real cute.
Oh my
All,
God.
all right. So if you couldn't tell, we are talking Jim Carrey, specifically touching base on his 1994 movies
We did not do
because
our
he
intro. You jumping in
what?
the episode. We didn't do our
I'm
intro.
already jumping in. I'm wait.
Alrighty then. Welcome back to 90s Noise. I'm Ashley, born 1988.
I'm April, born 1991.
And Happy New Year, like officially.
Ha Happy New Year. It's officially the new year.
Yay! 2024. Talking about 1994.
30-year anniversaries. We back.
We back.
We back, bitches. Um,
But yeah, so Jim
yes.
Carrey.
Oh, Jim Carrey. Okay. Yes. Okay. I'm running on very little sleep because people were still shooting off fireworks last night.
Oh,
So
really? They always do
yeah.
that, but
It was so frustrating. And so my cat was going crazy. She was not happy about that,
aw.
obviously. Um, but yeah, so we are talking Jim Carrey, who in 1994 alone had three major movies come out.
Mm-hmm.
Three.
Three.
I don't even remember the order on
So it
these.
was Ace Ventura that was first,
Hmm.
and then The Mask, and then Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah. So actually, funny little story I saw. So his salary for The Mask was significantly lower because Ace Ventura hadn't come out yet. And
Mm.
they got him for The Mask for like cheap for Jim Carrey. And then with Dumb and Dumber, he was able to get like buku higher because of the fact that Ace Ventura had already come out and was a huge hit. Like it was everybody freaking like that movie was crazy
Yeah, that movie's
insane.
very quotable. Like I feel like that one
Hmm.
I remember having the most impact, I guess, on me, like just like my introduction to Jim Carrey and his world and his comedy and the way he was. And so that one, just like rewatching them recently, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I've seen any of those like 90s Jim Carrey movies and probably since the 90s.
I so I wasn't allowed to watch Ace Ventura. Like I think I watched it one time
Hmm.
and it was just so raunchy
Hmm. Well, that's the thing.
that
Yeah. I was like,
my parents were like, no,
what
no.
was this a
Like
kids movie?
exactly. And so my parents were like, no. I was like, we were in the middle of watching it and they had me like leave the room or something
That makes
because
sense.
it would have been while when it was on TV. So I would have seen it probably 95. So I've been about
Okay.
four.
Yeah, you were a
And
bit younger for these
yeah.
movies to be in the time that
Yeah.
they came out. So no.
But I do remember watching The Mask and
Hmm.
Dumb and Dumber.
Okay.
Like those were ones that I actually did watch. Didn't understand like half of Dumb and Dumber as a
Yeah,
child.
yeah, right.
And rewatching The Mask, like you said, I haven't really watched any of those in my
Mhm.
adulthood. And rewatching The Mask, I'm just like, holy shit, like how they get by with some of this shit.
Well, I know, and I think like the rating was, well, I don't even remember what the rating was actually, but I felt
I've
like a
got The
lot
Mask
of it
pulled up.
was a bit like,
It
was
was
it?
PG-13.
Okay, I was gonna say it needed to be at least that rating because
Yeah.
that would make sense. But it was definitely for kind of, I don't even know what their target audience would have been for that movie, but I do know that that was like those couple movies were like in middle school, kids quoting those lines, and it just being one of those things that you always heard, and so you would always go around like, "All
Yeah.
righty then," and just like all these things. So it's like, okay, so we were
Yeah.
watching them in some respect. So I don't know. But it just I don't know. I just love Jim Carrey, and he's like almost on that same level to me as Robin Williams, just
Hmm.
his comedy and just the brilliance of his performances in all three of these movies. They're so unique. Like the characters are all
They
just so
are.
different.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna be honest, I preferred the second Ace Ventura over the first one. Like I feel like
Hmm.
the second one just was more memorable to me. I think maybe I just watched that one maybe more, or I don't know. I just didn't really care for the first one as much as the second one. Do you remember the
Yeah.
second one?
Oh, the first one's the dolphin one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I have to say, I don't think I recall the second one as much as the first one. I don't, and maybe it was because of the fact that like I really wasn't allowed to watch the first one,
Yeah. Yeah.
that I just never got into the second one. But no, I honestly, for me, like I, out of the three, like those three, the three from 94, The
Hmm.
Mask was definitely the one that always stood out to me.
Agreed.
Um,
Yeah, for
even
sure.
even as I grew older and did get to finally watch Ace Ventura, it still was The Mask. The Mask was just so classic to me that I don't know, it was just something about it. And like rewatching them, kind of like, I don't know, Ace Ventura, I just like part of me couldn't like stay focused on it. And then Dumb and Dumber, I'm just kind of like, yeah, these are, it's just that one was a little, I think, maybe too like slapstick in a sense.
Yeah, I personally never really got behind Dumb and Dumber. Like
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure I had seen it once, but for me, that comedy or whatever, it just really wasn't my style, at least when I was
Hmm.
younger. And then I know that there was like a big thing when they did the second one, but I
Never
don't
saw
think,
that.
yeah, I'm gonna say I never like rushed to the theaters or whatever to like go see it because it just had
Mhm.
been so long. And like it's great that they made a second one finally for the fans, but I just think it's hard to do that. And it's
Especially because it's the second one was going back in time. It
right.
wasn't it
It
wasn't like a
wasn't like a,
continuation.
yeah, exactly.
And so I had trouble even comprehending that. The biggest thing, like with Dumb and Dumber, I still remember, and I think one of the reasons I wanted to watch it was because of the freaking van.
Mm,
That was like, I mean, you look at it, you're like, what the hell?
right.
This is so cool. Like you don't see that. But otherwise, like I said, like specific scenes stand out from each of these to
Hmm.
me. And I still remember to this day, like not even like from the rewatch, I'm like, oh yeah. But there's still scenes in my mind that like just made an impact, I guess.
Okay.
But this was pretty much my main introduction to Jim Carrey. And with the exception of, honestly, with the exception of probably him as the Riddler
Mm,
in Batman,
Batman.
I didn't watch a lot of Jim Carrey later on. I've only seen like bits and pieces of Bruce Almighty
Mm.
with him, with Liar Liar. I think I did watch that entire thing all the way through, but once, maybe twice in my entire life.
See, I loved Liar Liar because that was honestly like the top of my list. I rewatched that recently, like before we even talked about
Yeah.
doing the Jim Carrey episode. I rewatched that and I found that one to be hilarious. I
Yeah.
think I personally, for some reason, remember that role of his a lot, like that movie. I don't know why, because it's definitely less kid friendly, I feel like, than some of the other ones. Because it's a little bit more focused on like relationships and all of that.
Yeah.
But for
And
some reason, I like him in that role. And for me, like just based off of the 90s in general, that for me, I love because it's very, that puts like all of his stuff together with it's just the
Mhm.
physical comedy and his just improv and craziness. I just feel like
Yeah.
that one kind of takes a
I
little bit
do
from everything.
I do remember like the court scene in
Mm-hmm.
Liar Liar.
Yeah.
That is one of the few things that does stick out. And maybe also because like especially now with like memes, we see some of
Are starting to pop back
these
up.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't know, like I just for me maybe because it was too much more adult relationship based, I just didn't as a child really gravitate towards that and I
And
haven't
probably
watched it
because
since.
there's no animals in it.
Probably.
That's
Like
that's a big
you
thing.
gotta I mean, okay, yeah. Like Milo in the mask. Little Milo.
I love
Like
that's like one scene that I always remember. Like dog's putting the mask on, he's turning into this crazy beast dog. I always love that scene. That one is
that one.
hilarious.
That scene. Yeah. But like I couldn't stand the Truman Show. Like that was
I
just
don't
too out there for me.
And see, I don't even know that I ever watched that one. Like I've heard about it all the time. People always refer to it, they talk about
Hmm.
it, but I don't know that I personally have ever seen it in its entirety. Like,
Yeah.
and I do recall that like because of probably these specific 94 Jim Carrey movies, I do feel like he was an actor that if a movie came out, like you saw a trailer or whatever, and they're like Jim Carrey's in it, it was like, oh, I want to go see it, or oh, like it's on my list,
Yeah.
like this, like it's got to be good because Jim Carrey's in it, and they weren't all great, but I do feel like I
Yeah.
did my best to follow a good part of his career, and I did really like that with him. He started off very comedy, like that was
Hmm.
his thing, and then he started getting into other like genres, like he has done
Yeah.
some other
He
very
really ha
interesting
he,
roles.
he really has. And I obviously like the big thing for me is his comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Because wasn't he an Eternal Sunshine?
Yeah.
I think
Mm-hmm.
I vaguely remember that one. But it was really weird seeing him in that kind of a role because
Right.
it's complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost just kind of how like Robin Williams had done the same thing too. Like you knew him the majority wise from comedy,
Mm-hmm.
but then he did step into other roles and it kind of was almost like, oh, okay. Well, this
Yeah,
person actually has a wider range.
exactly. Yeah.
Like I said, I still enjoy going back to the the mask. Like again, that's going to be like the main focal point for me with Jim Carrey is the mask. Like that is when I think of Jim Carrey, that's what I think of.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And I think if you said that to anyone, I think that they would know what you're talking about. Like even if
Hmm.
they didn't grow up in the 90s and that's not I feel like that's such a like unique, well-known character.
Hmm.
It's I don't know, it's so cool. Like that movie is so different and it's before its time. Like I just thought that it was so
It
creative
really
in the way that
was.
they did it.
And it's also very heavy improv.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, like, I guess this is, I didn't know this, but it's based off of a Dark Horse comic book
Mm-hmm.
series
Well, yeah, because
where,
and that's like I know it's not like necessarily the same thing, but I never knew because obviously I'm not a big comic person, and until I got into the
yeah,
whole Marvel universe with Loki and that whole world, and then mentioning that about the mask that he has, that it's the same, basically like from the same Norse god of,
Norse god.
like
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense about how his character is like basically shape shifting and how he can do all
Hmm.
these different things. I'm like, okay, that actually really makes sense and is really, really cool that it wasn't just some like random thing that they created actually seems like very legit of a backstory that there could be a mask like that out
Oh
there.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like it really is. And with now I've not really gone deep into like the Norse
No.
mythology and everything. I was more Greek and Roman,
Hmm.
obviously because that's what you're taught, that's what we get
Yeah.
taught in school. But yeah, the connections that Marvel has kind of kept in their discussions and their movies and their
Mhm.
shows in regards to Loki, Odin, all of those is very, very well versed.
Mhm.
And you do see connections when it's mentioned in something else, like how it's really stayed on point, I guess. Like with the Loki Marvel character. But then going back to something like this from the early 90s where they're mentioning Loki. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, so they obviously they built character, like developed Tom Hiddleston's character and made a more rounded character than
Mhm.
kind of would normally see, but it is still based off of this mythology,
Exactly. Mhm.
and you see it in other parts of entertainment too.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I said, the lines from the masks really still stick out to me. Scenes, I hadn't probably seen this movie in probably a good 20 years at least.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
And just the different scenes, I'm like, okay, when's this scene coming up? Like once I
You
started watching,
already
I'm like,
start, yeah. Mhm.
you're like, oh, okay, when is this one coming up? Where is this at in this again? Like the whole the cop, the cops and they're dancing.
Yes. Yes.
And that scene was actually supposed to be cut.
Oh, really?
And
I
yeah,
wonder why.
the I think it was the director just
Feel like it fit in.
didn't really care for it and didn't think it really worked. But then when they did
Tested it.
had done yeah, they done testing and it just tested really, really well, that scene.
I thought it was
And
a cute scene. Like I
yeah.
feel like it kind of transitioned well, and you were just kind of like, what's gonna happen? Oh crap, he's surrounded and stuff. But then
Mhm.
like just the fact that he has some sort of power over these people to start getting them
Yeah.
to
And that's
do
a very
this.
low-key thing.
Exactly. Yes, I love that. Like I honestly, as a kid, no way got any of this. Like it didn't make
Mhm.
sense. It was just Jim Carrey being ridiculous and just funny and la la la. But now watching it again, you're picking up on all these little different nuances and stuff from history and things that you've now seen being remade or whatever
Mhm.
years later. And it's like, but wait, that's what they were referencing. Like that's what they're. It's
Yeah,
always so wild to like realize that at an older age.
absolutely. And it is crazy and it's funny because I mean, this was Cameron Diaz's first movie.
I was just about to say that Cameron Diaz, yes. She actually was really, really good in this movie. Like I
I
kind
loved
of
her in
don't even
this.
believe that this was her first movie. I thought she was just so flawless in it.
And they saw her, like one of the producers or directors, somebody involved with like casting or something, saw her walking out of a modeling
Hmm.
agency or like a modeling audition because they originally wanted Anna Nicole Smith
Yes,
for
I
this
did hear
role.
about that. Hmm.
And so I mean, hell yeah for her. Like this was fucking awesome. Like, I mean,
Yeah, I
she
mean, I
did a
feel like
kick-ass
this,
job in this.
yeah, this catapulted, I feel like her career. Like this, after this movie, I feel like she just started being in everything. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy to think that something so crazy like kooky as this role would launch someone's career the way that it did. But I
Mhm.
mean, both her and Jim Carrey, just this movie, I feel like was what just
Yeah. And so this is a little tidbit on this, which I will never for the life of me understand the voting for the Academy does. Okay. This movie was nominated for
Mhm.
visual effects
Mhm.
Oscar
Yes.
and lost to Forrest Gump.
That doesn't really make any sense. You're right. What visual effects does Forrest Gump have?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, what?
I mean, I guess I
What?
have to understand the definition of their visual effects. Like I'm thinking like the transformation he did, all the different like kooky, like
Yeah.
almost cartoonish type things. Like I kept thinking about that Who Framed Roger Rabbit movie where it just like there
Hmm.
were people, but also like it just seemed like that the
Yeah.
mask kind of did that. And I've even watched some of the behind the scenes of how they created some of this, and it's so cool. Like I just can't even
Yeah.
imagine the process and that went on behind the scenes to create something like this because it really was so unique for its time to have both the animated and like 3D or whatever you call the people. What do you call
Yeah.
people in movies? 2D? I don't know, but just like
Uh,
I guess it's
well,
not
no,
3D, but I don't know.
I get what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
the more,
The human aspect versus the cartoon
yeah,
aspect, I guess.
exactly. Yeah. Where like the cartoons would be the 2D, whereas the human would
Mm-hmm.
be the 3D because you could like see. But yeah, this movie was well ahead of its time.
Mm-hmm.
And I I still, like I said, to this day,
And you
like,
know what's crazy about the mask is that it actually came out around the same time as your favorite movie of 94, but The Mask still beat it out. So that's pretty
well, yeah,
impressive.
because the mask was also geared towards what had
Adults,
a more adult
yeah,
audience, so they
more
could
wider
go
range.
by
Hmm.
themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas mine, which we'll be talking about here in a few weeks, was literally geared towards kids.
Right.
And so adults went with their kids, but if you didn't have a child,
You weren't
and you went,
necessarily, yeah.
you were kind of looked at like, okay, what are you doing? Like when they did the like the 20th anniversary re-release in theaters for
Mm.
it, I fucking went by myself. Like I was in the theater. I was like, bitches, don't be looking at me. I'm an original here. And everything. Like I fucking did. I think I went to like the first showing on a Saturday, the week it got re-released. I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna be there. I was there with the live action, which we'll
Mm.
get to with that and everything. But yeah, so this is definitely, like I said, this is one that, I mean, dates, you could have taken dates too
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah. It could have
So
been a fun date movie.
it was not, it had a wider range
Hmm.
to bring in, and that, I mean, that's probably why it beat it and everything. And
What did you think of? So Ace Ventura had Courtney Cox as that female lead. What did you think
yeah,
of her in that?
I'm trying because I so part of the reason I'd said let's do the Jim Carrey thing was because I'd seen Ace Ventura like 2 months ago, I think it
Okay.
was.
Hmm.
And so I'm trying to like remember because it's, but because wasn't she, what was it, like reporter? Why am I thinking
She
reporter on
was,
this?
she's a reporter on Screen.
No, no, that could be because I watched them both at the same, like around the same time. Give me
Can't
a
think
second
of
here.
her,
It's
but
let me.
I think
I'm getting.
she
Give
was
me a second
she was like somehow connected to the
to.
dolphin going missing. So
That's what it was because
she was
I don't
looking
know
for
why I'm
someone to
thinking
help, but I don't know if yeah, if it was a reporter or if she just like ran the team or like
was watching the dolphin.
the dolphin
Well, so
caretaker. I don't know.
like so okay, so here's the biggest thing that I remember from Ace Ventura is because it was Miami Dolphin.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like the big thing that's stuck in my head on that.
Being in Florida.
But yeah, and Miami, because I think this was my first like introduction to Miami.
So I love like Ace Ventura, the character. The only thing
Uh-huh.
what I don't really love about the movies, watching it now as an adult, knowing kind of a lot of the behind the scenes shit that goes on,
Mm-hmm.
all of the animal aspects of it, like it just kind of makes you sad, thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that always just is kind of like a letdown on you're like, oh, I love seeing the animals in it. It's so cute, love it, great. But then you're like, there's a lot of animals in this movie.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yes. And that's what's always hard for me is, like you said, watching, I love seeing the animals and everything, but I just knowing how strict and
Hmm.
how overworked they get and everything. And at this time, there really wasn't any policing
Right.
on set. I mean, they had like, as we talked with Brian on, they did have somebody who
Like the Humane Society is usually a
was,
part of it, but they
but
just slap people on the wrist. They
mm,
don't.
well, not just that, it's also that like 90%, 98% of the time, they're just there to say no animals were
Right.
harmed.
Exactly. We were
But
here.
what's your
What's the
definition of
definition?
harm?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
harmed
Because
as in breaking something, obviously. Harmed as in mentally harmed because of not getting to eat a
mm-hmm.
proper meal because they're trying to make the animal seem starved
Mm-hmm.
or be that's their training method. And I get like I mean I've got a cat, so I don't deal with like dog training and everything. I know that like treats are a lot of times a
Mm-hmm.
big motivator for training. But like you don't starve your dog just to train her,
Right.
do you?
I
Do
could no, I
you?
could never imagine doing that. Like it just doesn't even remotely make any sense.
Yeah. I did like how like with the mask, Milo was he was he was there, but he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like over and like
Right.
too much
Yeah,
to
I
where
didn't
you
feel like they
felt.
had to do too much with him where it's
Yeah,
like,
and it was more of like fetches,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. It
Mm-hmm.
really it didn't seem like it was stand here, back legs here, twirl around,
Right.
do this type of thing. It was more get the keys,
Yeah,
find the
exactly.
keys,
Yeah.
find the
That was probably
keys.
the hardest thing he had to do was like jump up on the wall, which I'm sure was not even really
Yeah,
that high up for what they filmed. I did like
yeah.
that scene though. I thought that was kind of funny. Like,
Not the
oh, it
cheese.
stayed with you. I know. He's like, gee.
Like you said, it sounds the same. That dog also the dog who played Milo looked a lot like Beethoven's friend in the first Beethoven, the little terrier.
Oh, I don't remember that his friend in the
The
first one.
the little terrier that like when that
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, he kind of Milo kind of reminded me of that little dog a little bit. Just
Yeah,
throwing
I
that out.
like Milo.
Milo was good.
That's,
Here's where was it? I just so you know what's actually funny is that Lauren Hawley turned down Courtney Cox's role in Ace Ventura.
who's
But
Lauren
yet
Holly?
she is the girl, the female lead in Dumb and Dumber.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me see what she looks like.
She had been in
Oh,
I
okay.
know her mainly from like NCIS
Okay.
was a big thing. But yeah, so she had actually turned down Courtney Cox's role,
Hmm.
but then
Interesting. And then came
co-starred
back
with
and
him later.
did. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
always cool though when they like know someone that they really want to be in their film and work with like the same people they've worked with before and like
Yeah.
okay, they can't come onto that one, but they're gonna join you for a different one.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I mean, I don't Dumb and Dumber just didn't really hold my attention, I guess, as strongly as the other two. I love Jeff Daniels. Like I feel like he's done a lot of cool stuff, but that I just that whole I already said it like this. I didn't really care for the comedy as much as the Ace Ventura, The Mask, because I feel like those were a little bit more physical type
Hmm.
comedies. and you can just laugh along
S-
with it. But the Dumb and Dumber, you're just almost like it's like a cringe comedy kind of like you're like,
Yeah,
ooh.
definitely. I I just remember the scene will always stick with me. And I think we were watching it for some reason. We were either watching it at a friend's or we were watching it on our way to Colorado. I can't remember which, but the scene where they get pulled over with the beer bottles. You remember which scene I'm talking about?
I may have tuned out.
Well, where they had pissed in the beer bottles because they didn't want to stop, or there
Oh,
wasn't the and they and the officer's like, let me, and he's like, nah, that beer's okay, or something like that. But no, that scene will always be the main scene from Dumb and Dumber that I remember.
really?
Oh yeah, because that was just so outrageous, and
Yeah, that is
it
crazy.
was so outrageous. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, okay, give me 1 second. It wasn't on. Wow. So, according to, I don't know. Okay, so Jeff Daniels wasn't wanted for the film, but
Hmm.
Jim Carrey wanted him to be in it in order to ensure a no from in order to ensure a no from him, they'd offered him 50,000 for the role. He accepted without any hesitation, nor did he attempt to negotiate, despite insistence from his agent the film would kill his career. By 94, the film was Daniel's most successful.
Wow.
That's insane.
I mean, it
They
is.
originally,
Like, it really is
yeah.
one of those movies. Like, you can say, oh, Dumb and Dumber. Like, everybody knows Dumb and Dumber. Like, even if you really didn't watch it, like myself, I didn't really watch it, but I know Dumb and
Mhm.
Dumber. I know their characters. Like, you
Yeah.
just kind of, you get it. So that's the thing with some of these roles. I mean, I think that was kind of the same thing with Jim Carrey. Like, they were like Ace Ventura, that character is going to kill your career. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
because it was so out there. It really was so out there.
Oh, yeah. And just for the horror fans and everything, there are some scenes that were filmed at the Stanley Hotel. Did you know that?
Ooh. No, I did not know that.
That
'Cause I don't know what the
that
Stanley Hotel is. What's the Stanley Hotel?
the Stanley, you don't know what the Stanley Hotel is. The Shining?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know it by the
Yeah.
name, like no, but
So, when they were shooting, they stayed there. Jim stayed there. Jim Carrey stayed there and requested to stay in the infamous room 217, which
oh, of course he
if you
would.
know, yeah. Um, about 3 hours, according to a tour guide at the hotel, about 3 hours after Carrey went to sleep, he came running out of the room and left the hotel. To this day, he vows to never go back and won't tell anybody why.
Oh,
Ooh.
interesting. But it's also like
Uh,
it's Jim Carrey, so he could just be
yeah.
playing a role.
Oh yeah, exactly. Um,
That's funny.
and you know what's interesting? So they originally offered him only 700,000 to appear in this film, but
Wow.
after after the offer went in the same week with when Ace Ventura opened at number one. So by
Mm.
the time Carrey's agents had renegotiated with the film's producer, his salary had been upped itself to 7 million,
Well, that makes sense. I
almost
mean,
almost half the film's budget.
that's crazy though, because you could think like if Ace Ventura had been released just a couple weeks later,
It,
he would have
it
taken
would have
what he
been
was taken.
just like with the mask
Hmm. But I mean,
and
that's just kind of
everything.
how the business works. I mean, if you haven't really
Hmm.
established yourself as an actor with any type of range, then yeah, I mean, you're not going to be expected to make millions. So it takes a little bit. And like I said, I mean, this whole 94 of movies for him just
Was
created
insane.
this whole world for him. I mean, like I don't think any other actor has been able to achieve what he was able to, having three movies come out, be number one, in the same year. I don't think it's
Yeah,
been done again.
I don't think so either.
That is insane. Like actors don't do that anymore. They may release two in a
No,
year, but it's
maybe.
usually in that sense, it's not they don't have that choice to of when they get released. It's just they probably filmed something 2 years ago and then they filmed something else and then the studios just didn't end up getting them out in time, like with COVID and shit. So they
Yeah.
got lucky, but
Or it's one of those where there'll be one theatrical release and then the other straight to video or something.
yeah.
But no, this 94 was a good year for Jim Carrey. And I mean, speaking of like COVID and then like with the strike and everything, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of curious. It would be interesting to see what if there are still residuals from these movies, if he's still
Mm.
getting, and what that would be.
Well,
Because I
like I
mean,
was
even
telling you, most of his movies are not available to stream for free. Like you have to pay for most of
yeah,
his movies. So, I mean, right there, you have to think about what goes into all of that of why some actors' movies are mostly pay and some are out there free. So you have to wonder, like, what does that have, what does that have to do with like the residual part of it? Do they make more? Do they
yeah,
make less? I don't know.
I'd be curious,
Hmm.
honestly, because that's one thing where it's like, okay, I mean, I don't have cable or anything, so I don't know if I I mean like Ace Ventura used to be played almost
All the time on
every
cable
couple of
TV.
weeks.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. That one was out a
Um,
lot. The
I
Mask, I
mean
don't feel like not as
the
much, but it
so the
was out
Mask and
there.
Dumb yeah, the Mask and Dumb and Dumber were ones that we had recorded
Oh,
on
nice.
VHSs.
Nice.
Like because it was like we missed a few seconds because we tried to not get the
Mm-hmm.
commercials and
Hmm.
everything. Yeah, we had on VHS for like our own personal recordings of it. But yeah, it's interesting to think on that front on what the difference is compared to the streaming. And obviously, like there wasn't the streaming at the time. And
Mm-mm.
so there wasn't that to be negotiated into
Exactly.
contracts.
Hmm.
And so that's also probably part of why some of these older movies are purely you have to rent it
Exactly.
because because of that and whatever studio that
Hmm.
still owns it
Right.
doesn't want to lose out, understandably, because I
Yeah.
mean they've got a they're the I believe I mean to me I would think they would be the ones that would be having to fork out the monies for the residuals
I mean, and some of these
and
studios probably still aren't even around anymore. So
mm-hmm.
that's a big part of it too. Does another studio acquire them or do they just, I mean, do they just,
Yeah.
nothing ever
Oh
happens?
yeah.
Do you remember the Cable Guy? Like I know that movie was a,
That one kind of freaked me out. Like,
I want to watch. I didn't get to rewatch that one, but I do want to rewatch it because just watching the trailer of it, it doesn't seem that familiar. But I remember hearing the Cable Guy all the time. Cable Guy this, Cable Guy, and
yeah,
I like all that. So
I
I know
don't
it was big, but I don't know
the
that
freaking
much.
box of it freaks
Yeah,
me
the
out.
the
Like,
the
it's
picture
creepy.
is creepy.
It's creepy. I don't recall it. Like,
Yeah.
I think I recall Truman Show more than the Cable Guy.
Okay. Yeah. I got to put that on my list to try to watch just to see if it does spark any memories because
Yeah.
it definitely, I think, was more of like your parents' movie that they were watching more
Hmm.
so than it. I don't think it had the same type of comedy aspects like The Mask
Yeah.
and Ace Ventura did. So I think it definitely was more of a grown-up movie. But it is another one like on his 90s list of movies that is a standout to me of like, I remember seeing that name a lot. I remember hearing about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like that one was always rented at Blockbuster.
Oh, really?
Everything. Oh yeah. I remember always putting it back out on the shelf and everything. And that's why like the freaking box is
You're like,
so like ingrained. It's like and it's like, oh my gosh, this is creepy. But no, I couldn't tell you the story of that one for the life of
No,
me.
no. I have like an idea in my head, but like I said, after watching the trailer, I'm like, What am I
The
thinking
idea I
of
have
then? I'm like, what am
the
I?
yeah, what I have in my head is the Truman Show. Like I got those mixed up and everything, but that's like what's in my head on that.
That's hilarious. So through the 90s, and I'm even including like the 2000 movies that he did, like 2000, year 2000, because I still think that's 90s because technically a lot of them were filmed in the 90s.
Yeah.
What other movie of his like stands out to you?
Probably, like I said, at the beginning of our episode, the Batman. What was it?
Oh,
Batman
yeah.
Forever,
See, I don't
I
know if I
think
ever
is.
saw that. I'm definitely gonna put that on my list though, because
Um,
I don't think I did, because I'm not a big Batman fan.
my oldest brother is a huge Batman fan, huge Batman fan, and so we watched all of those,
Mm,
and he's he's interesting as the Riddler.
yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's funny. Alex and I were just talking about this the other day because we were talking DC
Hmm.
and talking about like Robert Pattinson's Batman.
Oh, I like that one. Actually was pretty good.
And so how like the Riddler in that is very much like Jim Carrey's Riddler,
Mm, okay.
but which is more along the comics.
Hmm.
And so it just, I mean, just watching it, you can see how he is very comic comic-esque, I guess.
Okay.
That's probably the one that stands out to me the most. Yeah, the big Jim Carrey ones for me in the 90s was 90s and like beginning of
Hmm.
2000s was definitely The Mask and Batman. And like I said, I believe it's Batman Forever. Please
Batman
don't
Forever.
shoot me
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
Hmm.
be, yeah, because I get them. There's so many. I get them all freaking mixed up and
I
everything.
know there are so
Um,
many Batmans.
and it's like, okay, which Batman was it? Like actual like Batman. Like who was the actual Batman? That's gonna drive me crazy. Because even in those
Oh,
it
I think
was
it was
like
Val
different.
Kilmer.
Was it?
Hmm.
Yeah, it was Val Kilmer, Tommy Lee Jones, Nicole Kidman, Chris O'Donnell were the ones in that.
And Drew Barrymore was in it too.
Yeah, because she was in with
Hmm.
Two-Face.
I'll have to
Um
check that one out because I
and
don't think I saw it.
Debbie and our girl from Beethoven too,
Mm,
Debbie Mazer.
okay.
So actually, when do you remember when we what was it, 2022, when I had come down from MegaCon and we went
Hmm.
to
Yes.
Cocktails and
The
Screams?
yes.
The guy and the two girls, they were dressed like they
Oh,
were
yes.
Two-Face
Hmm.
and Sugar and Spice
Okay,
on
yeah.
Batman Forever.
Nice. Oh, I love that.
And everything. Which is funny because I think I had just like rewatched it like just before that and everything. And you know what's even what's hilarious just looking at the cast on this? John I can never pronounce his last name, Favreau.
John. Oh, from he's from Iron Man, right? That guy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Happy
Yeah.
is in it also.
Okay. I'll have to try to watch that.
He's just a little small, like a smaller part and
Small role.
everything. But like I said, I do like Chris O'Donnell and the guy who plays Alfred. Tommy Lee Jones I think does a pretty good job. Obviously, Jim Carrey adds like that comedic, like almost like psychotic comedy to it.
Mm-hmm. The only other movie that like I love from his collection of the 90s
Mhm.
is the Grinch. Like I just feel like he fit
That's
that role so well and it just made
yeah.
me because like I can't say that before that I really would have loved the story of the Grinch and all of that,
Mm-mm.
but then just seeing him in that role, it made me just so amused by like what they were going to
Absolutely.
do with it. And then it was like, okay, this is a Christmas movie that I would enjoy watching more frequently um, than other Christmas movies.
Yeah, so I was gonna mention the Grinch. Like that one, yes, I'm not a huge Grinch story fan,
Mm-mm.
but his role in that I did enjoy. I still love, I love the scene where he like pulls the tablecloth and it was supposed to make a fucking mess.
Yeah, I
But
remember
he
that.
did it so perfectly that nothing moved. And so he goes back and like
Yeah.
messes it all up. And that was completely improvised. Like it was everything was supposed to come off when he pulled on that, but he just did it. It was like one of those little magic tricks
Oh,
that
I
you
would have
see.
loved to be on that set when that
Oh my
happened. And
gosh.
everyone, like, what do you
Everybody,
think the crew is just like?
and all of them are probably like,
Do we just leave it? Do we just
uh,
move on?
the director is probably like, let's see what he does. Okay, this works.
And cut. But yeah.
Well, yeah, because immediately you'd be like, cut.
Right.
You're supposed to
Reset.
make a
Yeah.
mess
Yeah,
and everything.
exactly. Yeah,
But
and I
you
mean that's
just,
just the brilliance of his mind. Like he was just able to improv in that moment and like
mhm.
create something new with the scene that it still worked for his character.
Yeah,
And like that's not
absolutely.
something that everyone can do because if it was someone else who did that and they're like, "Oh shit, it didn't come off." They would have been like, "Oh, let's you know
They,
what I mean? They would have just been like,
yeah,
"Okay."
they would have probably just they probably would have looked at the crew and been
Yeah.
like, did I just do
Whoops.
that? Because that's one of those things where I mean it's one of those like you don't do that like
hmm
you don't see that like if
Exactly.
it's like so yeah that's one scene but and with Christmas having just
hmm
passed and everything I don't know if you saw this is my big issue with the Grinch all around.
hmm
He gets all of their trash, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So where'd the dog come from?
That's sad to think about.
But it's so true.
It's true, but it's yeah, the way that
And
you just can kind of play it off
and
and
I
not think about that, but that is what they were implying, like that the dog came from the
mhm.
trash. Like so literally somebody in that shitty town tossed him out.
Well, yeah, it was like a lot of people do on
The
Christmas or
holidays.
birthdays,
They get a pet.
get somebody a pet, either the previous pet's discarded
hmm
or they're getting a pet for a child who isn't old enough to handle the responsibility. And then when it's up to the parents to take care of it, the parent doesn't want to do it, so they just
hmm
get rid of it.
Yeah,
Like
I hate that.
I hate that too. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. Pets are not a temporary decision. And there's my public service announcement for this episode.
Keep your pet forever.
Your pet, you are your pet's world. They're only here for a short time.
These are really, and then more like companions. Like I don't even like to like
Yeah.
say like I own a pet because I don't like that terminology. I don't like
Mhm.
saying like you like own something because it's like
She owns you. Like,
the
let's be
animals
honest.
own
Our
you.
pets,
Right, exactly.
our pets
Yes.
own us.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
My
Like
cat
it's
owns
not
me.
it's not
Like,
the other way around. They own us. Like I mean, because
yeah.
clearly we bend over backwards for them. If you're a good
Mhm.
animal lover and stuff, you will do whatever for them. So yeah, some people just don't need one, and
Mhm.
they should never have one. And I just those type of people, like if you're one of them, I'm sorry, but you must have a terrible life because you're not surrounded by the love of animals, and that's just sad for you. That's sad.
Just know that the deepest depths of hell are reserved for that. That's my thought process on that. So don't be like the people of Whoville.
Yeah, be better than the Whovilles.
Yeah.
All right, April,
Uh,
do you want to end this episode on? I'm going to pick one of these affirmation cards from the 90s, and this,
okay.
kids, is going to be, according to this is your soul message for the day or the moment or the
Ooh.
week, whatever it is. We'll probably do it for the week since this is a weekly episode. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to
We
randomly
ain't doing
pick one.
daily.
Yeah, right. All right. This is what we got.
Oh, that looks like a little
Little
Tamagotchi.
Tamagotchi. Yeah, there we go. If
Tamagotchi.
if you were a Tamagotchi, people would fight over getting to feed you, and no one would ever let you die. Boom.
Oh, that works. That works so
Oh,
well.
that is really
And I didn't
cute.
even realize that was in regards to a Tamagotchi. All right. And on that note, we will see you guys next week. Peace.
Somebody stop me.
Alrighty then.